AIM's first Filipino dean and longest serving in this position, having been dean from 1973 to 1986, AIM's president and member of the Board of Trustees from 1978 to 1986, but proudest of his years as professor from 1968 to 2001, Professor Gaby Mendoza.
Gaby for me is the epitome of AIM. He is Mr. Case Method.
Gaby was a leader and, more importantly, a selfless mentor of mentors.
Gaby Mendoza was a visionary management educator.
He was an excellent teacher.
He was my role model in case teaching.
Gaby is AIM.
The case method, it makes them think through so that when they become managers, they can think through.
Gaby to me was really the case method teacher par excellence. And what really struck me about him was his incisive way of questioning. It's brilliant the way he was able to see through things, go to the heart of the matter.
He is the case method professor who stuck to the way of training students to make them think for themselves rather than mouth theories that they just read.
He did not keep case teaching notes and throw away the case after using it. He believed that no matter how often you use the case, every case discussion should be refreshing and spontaneous.
I think the principal educational contribution is the fact that he insisted and was able to sustain the method of teaching that required thinking.
He conducted the case session with us before. He stood up, went to the head of the classroom. In those days, AIM classrooms still had ashtrays every 4 seats. So students and faculty alike would smoke. So we would go to the front, light a cigarette. We would be waiting anxiously for him to start the case. He would just sit and stare, suck on the cigarette. About 10 minutes later, when the cigarette was nearly over, somebody, I don't remember who it was dying to talk. He just said, "Can we start the case?" And Gaby says, "I was waiting for you to start the case." And so it was a technique that only Gaby could pull off.
I enrolled for his case method class. One of the exercises involved a triad exercise, and I was grouped with Gaby himself and Phil Alfonso. So the three of us were doing this exercise where the idea was for one person to start talking and the other two would be observing, one observing for the content and the other observing for the feelings. So Gaby basically started talking extemporaneously. He went on, and after like 3 minutes, he stopped. He looked at Phil, and then he looked at me, and then he scratched his head, and then he said, "I'm not making much sense, am I?" And for me now, it actually became the most unforgettable experience, and I realized that's probably the only time he ever admitted that he was talking and not making sense.
As the late Father Donald said, you know, every time I entered the room of Gaby, I thought twice, thrice. I needed to anticipate what questions he was going to ask. I prepared myself all the time. And that's the experience of, I think, most people insofar as Gaby is concerned.
We had a small faculty, and we did a lot of talking to one another. As a matter of fact, when we were in the Ateneo, we had one room, and we had 10 or 12 faculty members, and we spent our time talking about what we wanted it to be, etc., etc.
He was a very challenging boss. He always pushed you to your limits. He was also a very naughty and argumentative colleague, but always in the spirit of trying to clarify things.
Gaby was a real character insofar as the faculty is concerned. He had a habit of being always on one side of an argument. probably his greatest adversary in faculty debates has been Ed Morato. They were always the spice of our faculty meetings. We look forward to the two of them debating.
I was talking to him about evaluation, students' evaluation of me. I was telling him that I was wondering if I was doing the right thing. He said, your students sooner or later will tell you if it's working or it's not working. The important thing is don't be afraid to try what you think you want to do, what you think you ought to be doing.
Gaby was a great social person. He also loved to dance. And whenever we had a faculty party, at that time, there was always dancing in the faculty parties.
Well, aside from the fact that he was scared of Lita, whom he loved very dearly, and his children, the thing that I remember most about Gaby was he enjoyed great conversation on a wide range of topics, and he enjoyed it over good food.
She really liked to eat lechon, and whenever there was any get-together, lechon was always a main item in the menu because of Gaby.
He would have, in his healthier days, a huge mound of rice with 3 or 4 pork chops. And he would take a cruet of patis and he would sprinkle it in a spiral.
It was a pleasure really sitting with him at the dinner table because he ate with such gusto. For example, in our early faculty menus, there was one item that consisted of one drinking glass full of chocolate ice cream with chocolate syrup. And that was called the Mendoza Special because he was the one who invented it and he was the one who patronized it. No?
Gaby to me is a very dear friend. We had many good times together. I also see Gaby as a fantastic leader who knew what he wanted, who focused on the things that he wanted done and got them done and supported them to the hill. So that to me is what Gaby is all about.
He has guided me on how to be a more effective teacher as well as writer. I will always remember Gaby as my favorite teacher, even though I was never his student.
What he means most to me is a steadfast friend. He was always fair. He pointed out things to you when you were wrong, but he always supported you when he thought you were right.
For us, Gaby was 110% adamant in enforcing high standards. And he is probably the reason why AIM has such a reputation today. It's because of his passion for excellence that we are what we are today.
He was my neighbor, the teacher in the office when we both retired. If I hear music, then I know that he's around because he's just coming. And he's always loved that. I will miss him a lot.
I have a granddaughter already, great-granddaughter already.
How old is she?
2 years old. Great-granddaughter. I'm married to an old woman.
The one thing I will always remember about Gaby has to do with the times that we would be bantering in the faculty lounge. Every time the talk turned to the personal things, Gaby would always say, "Oh, I don't worry about those things. Investments, I leave that up to Lita. Building a house, oh, Lita takes care of that. Raising the kids, Lita was just perfect." Every time Gaby would say, "Oh, I leave that to Lita." You could see in his eyes the admiration, the gratitude, and the affection that he had for Lita, his wife. For me, this would be the defining quality of Gaby. I hope that as we all remember Gaby, we will also do it with admiration, gratitude, and affection.